What is the most Karen thing a Karen has even done to you, personally? When I worked at the Home Depot, a Karen told me that she didn't want any black men to install her flooring. I was in charge of arranging her order and told her that we don't select which individuals exactly will install her floor and that she'll get who she gets. She proceeds to have a fit about it, demands white installers, asks to speak to my manager. I'm so glad she did, because my manager's name was Dwayne and he was a real big black dude. Turns out she didn't want to speak to the manager. Left her card in the FPUS machine at the McDonald's I was managing as a teenager. Rang me to say I needed to drive it out to her. That I ruined her night. Ruined her family's night. Owed her free food and that she'll be laying a formal complaint when I refused all of the above. She showed up 3/4 of an hour later with steam blowing out her ears asking for her card back. Last we heard from her, that I needed to leave the gym because I made her son feel like only fat people go to the gym. Blew up at me for ignoring her son, who was trying to hit on me by saying konnichiwa and calling me koi. I had never met him before and I am not Japanese. She called me a stuck-up racist and insinuated that I should be glad he was worldly enough to speak Asian to me. I just responded sorry, no English. They had previously heard me speaking English with my friend, I'm pretty sure, and walked away. When I worked at a bakery, Karen bought a chocolate cupcake and ate half of it. Karen then asked if she could return her half-eaten chocolate cupcake, not because she didn't like it, but because she wanted to exchange it for half of a vanilla cupcake, something less decadent. Like most bakeries, we did not sell cupcakes by the half. She became offended when I asked if she wanted to purchase a vanilla cupcake. Doctor here. I used to work in a public night shift service, kinda like an emergency room but for non-emergencies, to keep the hospitals clear of white coats. So anything from a fever to a sore throat, to prescriptions for urgent treatments. And a Karen walks in at 3 AM asking for a prescription for hypertension drugs, which isn't unusual, as old people, more often than not, but she looked 55, sometimes don't notice they're running low. Anyway, the law, not a rule, not my decision, the law, states that this service can only write prescriptions for potentially life-threatening conditions, drugs for a maximum of 72 hours coverage. So if you take one pill a day, I can only prescribe you a single blister. Here we don't have bottles, but blisters. And while I'm writing the prescription, Karen casually mentioned that she was insomniac, and while cleaning the medicine cabinet she realized she was down to her last full blister. My pen stops. I ask her to repeat. Full blister, yeah. So I take the prescription, tear it in half, then again, then I throw it in the bin, explaining her the law. She gets mad, starts yelling and threatened to call the cops. Go ahead. Cops came, and she triumphantly announced that I'm refusing to treat her. I explained the situation, and they ask her if it's true that she has a full blister, and she, of course, being a Karen who is always right no matter what, confirms it. The cops look at her, still with a look of triumph, waiting for them to arrest me, then at me, then ask her politely to leave, as I'm in the right. She's livid. The day after, my boss called me and cracked up cause she went there during the day to talk to the manager, and she, my boss, told her the exact same thing. Never saw her again in there, weirdly enough. I deliver appliances for Best Buy. We had a woman call and complain that her fridge was not pre-cooled before it was delivered and that she had to wait for it to come down to temp. No one in the office was prepared for that one. Worked at a grocery store and a co-worker put a 99-cent sticker on my shirt. We were 2 of maybe 5 employees, so we were all good friends and everything is funny when you got a pastime on a shift, so I just left it there. Some woman came through my line and asked me why I had a sticker on my shirt and I just kinda laughed it off. She asked if I thought it was funny and I was like not really but sorta. She asked if my co-worker put it there, to which I responded yes. She told me she was going to speak to the store owner cause it was disrespectful to behave that way at work. She told me to call my manager and I did, but he was a super cool guy and knew this lady was a freaking idiot. She talked to the store owner and my manager about firing me to no avail. She accomplished nothing and was a C. The end. When I was working retail, this one woman had a big bag of coupons. Most of them were unusable because either they were expired or they were duplicates. She berated me because the system was rejecting most of the coupons. She called me stupid amongst other names, telling me I just wasn't doing it right. Then, as a typical Karen would, she asked to speak with my manager. My manager came and asked what the problem was. The women ranted about how incompetent I was because I didn't know how to scan a coupon. My manager looked at the coupons and the coupons were the problem, not me. My manager bitched out the customer for being disrespectful for me and told the customer to leave the store. I hated working there, but I'm so grateful that I had managers that totally didn't go by the customer is always right rule and weren't afraid to stand up for their employees. That was just one of many incidents. Was at the park with my daughter. She was 3 at the time. Her and a couple other kids started to play together. Then she attempted to use the monkey bars. She's a very adventurous child. About midway through, she fell. I didn't do anything because she's fallen before and I want her to learn to get back up on her own and not be scared to try again. Anyway, one of the boys was about to get on the monkey bars too, until I heard a woman run toward him screaming to stop. She picked him up and looked at my daughter. Told her it wasn't smart of her to go on the monkey bars if she wasn't fully ready because then others might get that same idea. That's when I got up and went to my daughter's defense. Sternly told the woman to not speak to her that way and it's no fault of hers that she wasn't scared to try something new. She took her kid and left. Came up to my register and asked for the price of a protein bar. Every item in the store had a physical price tag. Because we didn't have scanners at the register, I took it from her, flipped it over, and let her know it was $2.49 before tax. She asked me how much the case would be. Normally we did discounts for cases, but they had to be ordered ahead of time. So I started explaining we couldn't do a discount unless. She cut me off aggressively and hissed I didn't ask for a discount. So I typed in $2.49 x 12, added tax, and told her the final price. She stared me down for a few minutes before asking me to get my manager. Once my manager arrived, she spent literally 10 minutes staring into me, describing me as the least helpful person ever, talking about my bad attitude, complaining about how awful and rude I was, etc, etc, etc. I was working nearly full time, 35.5 hours per week, and commuting to a school over an hour away 4 days a week. This lady took the time out of her day to break me down to the point I started crying. Thanks Karen, I still remember you, hope you enjoyed your freaking protein bar. I used to work at a fast food in a theme park when I was 18. Karen held up the line cause she was demanding us to assemble a food for her daughter which we aren't allowed to do cause we go by a menu. My daughter can't have that. Well, what can you do for me? Do you want her to starve? Are some of the most irritating lines I ever encountered. Asked for my manager's personal cell phone number to complain that I, 7 months pregnant at the time, would not carry a refrigerator that she had not paid for in the cost of her room up to her 2nd story room. We did not have an elevator, rather than just accept an upgrade for free because she didn't want to unpack her stuff. She refused to believe we had rooms without fridges and I was just being fat and lazy. When I refused to give her the cell phone number, she asked for corporate's number. I wrote it down on a sticky note with a smiley face. She came down later and asked to move rooms. I made her pay the difference. I used to work retail, so I have come across my fair share of Karens. They were a huge reason why I went back to school and no longer work as a cashier. Anyways, one day while I was manning the registers with a few other co-workers of mine, I had a massive nosebleed right as I was finishing a transaction. I grabbed a tissue and quickly excused myself to run to the restroom so I could try to get it to stop bleeding. This meant that I couldn't say goodbye to Karen and give the little spiel about how I was oh so grateful for her shopping with us. Anyways, after about 10 minutes, I was finally able to get my nose back under control and headed back to the registers. I saw her waiting to the side with a scowl on her face, arms crossed over her chest, the whole 9 yards. She proceeded to scold me about how rude I was for not saying goodbye. After I apologized and explained that I had an unexpected nosebleed, she told me I should have tried holding it in and that the customer comes first. My brain was literally after that. My sister-in-law is the biggest Karen I've ever met. Complains in almost every restaurant we have gone to, but this one time they were moving house and my bro asked me to help. I was staying at their place for the delivery truck that was to arrive early in the morning. We were having drinks and my bed mattress was on the living room floor. At around 1:15 I said I think I'm going to go to bed. She replied, "Are you kicking me out of my own living room?" Not realizing she is crazy, I joke, "I guess I am." She said no one does that, and even though she had finished her last drink, made herself 2 cups of tea. She didn't go to bed till after 2:30. She told me the next morning she stayed up to show no one tells her what to do. I was a supervisor at Cost Plus World Market. A Karen comes in one night pushing a cart full of obviously used throw pillows and asks to return them. Of course she has no receipt and instead wants us to just look her up in the system. Except she refuses to provide her information for us to try to look her up. She starts yelling at my cashier, and that's when I stepped in to tell her very politely and calmly that she either needs a receipt or needs to provide us her name and phone number. She starts screeching and screaming about how we're buttholes and she'll get us fired and blah blah blah. Then she demands an apology from the president of the world. I'm certain she meant the president of World Market, but in her bleached hair fury she said the president of the world, and I barely held it together as I calmly offered her the corporate feedback number. She wouldn't take it and instead walked out of the store still yelling and without her cart of dirty pillows. She returned about 20 minutes later, quietly apologized, and took her pillows with her. We never heard from her again. Told me I couldn't work on my car in my own garage at noon because she didn't want my fast looking car to influence her sons to be hooligans like you. Working retail one afternoon and here comes Karen with a return. At first glance it's no big deal, just coming in to return a shirt. She walks up to the register, hands me the receipt to start processing, and we exchange a pleasant greeting. I take the shirt out of the bag to examine it and it is beyond disgusting. There were brown sweat stains all over it, from the pits to the stomach to the shoulder. It looked like whoever wore it rolled in mud or some nonsense. I proceed to tell Karen that I cannot return the product because it had clearly been used and that only unused and resellable items could be returned. Karen threw a fit, started screaming at me and accusing me of calling her a liar and whatnot. I hold up the shirt and point to the brown pit stains and say, "Karen, can't you see this stain? Oh man, did that make it worse?" She continues making a huge scene and demands to see the manager. Newsflash, Karen, I am the manager and I'm not budging. After 20 or so minutes of complaining, she finally leaves saying she'll be complaining to corporate and getting me fired and blah blah blah. Fast forward a few days, a guy walks into the store, finds the first store associate he can and immediately asks for me by name. Oh, here we go again. Anyway, my associate bring the guy over to where I'm standing and I politely greet him. The guy spends the next 10 minutes apologizing for his crazy wife Karen verbally abusing my staff and I a few days prior. Apparently, the guy went to the beach and did some type of CrossFit HIIT training class in the sand. Karen knows all of this. She was at the class with him. The guy ended up not liking the shirt for some reason and Karen thought she could pull a fast one on us by making a scene. Think again, Karen. Had a Karen threaten to report me to my manager for talking with other customers I was serving. I met plenty of Karens while working retail, but there's one who stands out. Karen was Indian and had the most entitled attitude of anyone I've ever met. She was also a regular customer, so we had to deal with her crap at least twice a week. Karen's favorite pastime would be to literally fill a trolley with clearance items. These are a nightmare as you have to reduce the price on the till manually. Management were worried about scanning fraud and so had disabled the multiplication button on the till. This meant that each item has to be scanned and discounted individually. Once all of her items had been scanned and discounted, Karen would always kick up a fuss over the price, accusing us of overcharging her and demanding to see a manager. Some managers would give in to Karen, which meant voiding the transaction and starting over. If they told Karen to get lost, she'd complain about never shopping here again and storm out, leaving a full trolley of goods to put back. Thanks B. Either way, the entire shit show would take at least an hour. There was a nice moment of karma for Karen, however. One winter, we had an especially heavy snowstorm. Our policy in this case is to clear the car park access to the spaces closest to the door. We do this as very few people come out when it's snowing and it lets people park as close as possible. Not Karen though. Oh no. She pulls into the car park, drives into the uncleared section and tries to drive through a snow drift, hitting a covered bollard in the process. She then clomps into the store, demands to see the manager and proceeds to yell at him point blank. Apparently she was going to sue us and get every employee fired for not clearing her usual parking space of snow. Our manager responded by banning her from our store for being abusive towards staff. In tech support, this Karen had started a PowerPoint presentation, saved it, gave it a name, worked on it for 8 hours, closed it, and when the program said "Do you want to save changes?" said no. So the program did what it was told and dumped them, and surprisingly when she reopened it was blank. I explained that she told it not to. Interrupted. No, that is not acceptable. You will fix it. No, there is no. Interrupted. Go around this circle several times. I finally call the on-call support for her company and explain what was going on. Have you ever had someone roll their eyes so hard you could hear them over a phone? Then conference Karen, who started right in before either of us could say anything with how incompetent I was etc etc. He let her burble for a minute then cut her off. She started squawking and he cut her off again, and again, and again until she finally shut up out of sheer surprise, I think. Screeching like a harpy didn't work. What world is this? He explained to her the same thing that I had, and she started yowling again and he chopped her off. Number, you've wasted my time on my day off, working as a favor to people with actual problems, and you've wasted tech support's time. You were abusive to both of us and I'm going to report you to HR in the morning. Goodbye. Click. He hangs up, and I'm laughing my butt off as she spits and sputters like an engine that just got a good solid swig of water. I was standing on a crowded train and a pregnant Karen started screaming at me because she had nowhere to sit. Me, the person who was standing because there were no seats. She started screaming like it was my fault that there were no seats. I was working at my job as a cashier at my local supermarket. We were swamped with people. I had at least 7 people waiting in my line. One of my good friends from high school was in my line and I talked to him as I was ringing up his stuff. After he left I welcomed the next lady in line and asked the usual stuff: did you find everything okay, how are you doing, etc. Before I could get a word out she asked to speak to my manager. Apparently I was rude to her for not including her in my conversation with my high school friend. She didn't even chime in or anything and I never seen her in my life. Freaking Karen, man. I worked at a home improvement store for a while in college. I was a cashier in the garden section. This woman pulls up on the curb in a no parking zone, grabs her fertilizer and soil. After I check out she goes freaking ballistic that I didn't help load her car and she was going to report me to managers. Due to company policy, I wasn't allowed to. Other employees were though. Her face mole was shaking and everything, over a bag of soil that weighed under 10 pounds and a handle of fertilizer. I was in line at our neighborhood grocery store. The woman ahead of me was purchasing a single birthday card. She stood there frowning after paying for it, and when the checker asked what was wrong she said that she needed someone to carry the card to her car for her. A single card in an envelope. I worked at a coffee shop where a woman came up to me to complain that her lattes weren't filled to the top. I had seen her husband sneak sips on the walkover but I wasn't gonna say that. So I gladly offered to remake both drinks but she said, I don't want you to fix this. I just want you to know I'm disappointed in you. Waiters waitresses of Reddit. What's something that I, as a customer, might do that's incredibly irritating, even if I'm oblivious to it? We have a sign in the front of our restaurant that says please wait to be seated by our hostess. I cannot tell you how many times a day people look at that sign and then seat themselves. Stop. We have a hostess for a reason. If she isn't there the second you walk in the door, I promise you she will return in a timely manner. Especially outside. I can't count the number of times people have sat themselves outside, a lot of times at dirty tables, and then complain that they've been waiting for so long and nobody has helped them. We didn't know you were there, or a new table. That's why we have a hostess. Former waitress. As much as I like talking to you, please don't try to draw me into a long conversation, especially if we're at all busy. I want to be friendly, but I can't stand there and talk about where my family's from and what I'm doing in school. And please don't be creepy to your waitstaff. Again, friendly is fine, but it's probably not appropriate to openly flirt. The worst culprits of this were 40+ men when I was 16-20, very often with their wives and kids there. It's probably not appropriate to openly flirt. This can be a two-way street if I'm with my jealous girlfriend and you're a really cute waitress. If you enjoyed your service, say something to the manager, not just the server. Also, have it be reflected in how you tip. As much as we appreciate feedback on how we're doing, verbal compensation does not pay the rent. If you enjoyed your service, say something to the manager. I used to work as a cashier and I loved hearing from my supervisors that a customer told them I was doing a great job. I did hosting and waiting at a nice place from high school through college. Wait times. When I worked front of house, I had to give estimates for wait times. My estimate was based off of years of experience and visual cues of how far along folks were into their meals. It's an estimate. If I could predict your wait time accurately to the minute, I would have been working somewhere more advanced than food service. Please don't glare at tables who are still eating because you came in during the rush without a reservation. And did I seat that table of 2 before your table of 8? Even though you arrived first, it's not really all that hard to puzzle out why. If all 8 of you want to sit at the 2 top, be my guest. Please don't seat yourself at a dirty table in a section that is not open, and then proceed to complain that nobody noticed you. Babies and wheelchairs. When you said a party of 5 and neglected to tell me about the 3 high chairs that you need, you will end up at a table that is too small. Ditto for wheelchairs. Please let us know that one of your guests needs a little extra space for a wheelchair. I would have made a different choice in who got the booth versus the table that has a height adjustment. Also, if you have one of those enormous wheelchairs or scooters, please make a distinction. I want to put you somewhere where everyone will be comfortable. Help me to help you. Don't cut them off or blurt your order out before they can speak. If they come up to introduce themselves and tell you the specials, let them. I can't stand the people who just blurt out Diet Coke as soon as the server walks up. Be friendly, they're people. I used to get crap like this when I worked retail. I'd see someone browsing in my department and wander over just to say hi and let them know I was around if they had questions. I never bought into any of the upselling or pressure balls the company pushed. Hi, how are Toda? I'm just looking. Well then frick you. Say please and thank you. Please. Don't snap or whistle at the server. Waving your hand is perfectly acceptable. Don't run the server. Ask for everything you need when the server asks you, is there anything I may get for you? Don't be on your cell phone when the server is trying to take your order. Don't leave your used wadded up tissue full of your mucus on the table. At least put it on your plate. Don't threaten the server about her tip before or after she has introduced herself to the table. Don't leave an entire tip in coins. If you're religious, do not pander your religion to the server, especially in fake dollars, and then call them a horrible person because she has to work on Sundays. Don't ignore the server when she approaches the table. There are many more, but these were some of the major offenses I experienced during my 7-year imprisonment in the restaurant world. I always feel weird because no one else I dine with ever says please or thank you, and I kind of feel like a broken record since I say it so much, but it feels rude not to acknowledge what they're doing and I'm appreciative of their job. If you are a religious person going to eat lunch on Sunday, obviously after church, try to act like a religious person and be kind to your server. I haven't actually waited tables in years, but the thing I remember most was people coming in on Sunday afternoons in their church best and proceeding to treat the wait staff like complete dog crap. Just because you attend mass regularly doesn't give you the right to treat people who had to work on Sunday like crap. Hypocritical buttholes. On behalf of all the good Christians that don't do this, I'd like to apologize. There, all 100 of us feel better now. If you don't like the food, please don't take it out on the server. I had a mom and her daughters ring up about a $100 bill. They loved the soup and appetizers, but the steak took a long time and came out cooked wrong. I comped the steak for them $30 off their bill, but the mom proceeded to treat me like crap. When I went to pick up the bill, I was shocked to see she didn't leave me a cent. That was one of my only tables that night, so I lost out on $20. The worst part is that I had given them great service, but I got the blame for the cook's mistake. Hey, People forget that service equals food quality. If your server went out to comp your steak, that is great service. Waiter here. Please. Please don't leave dirty diapers at the table. How did they get there anyway? Were you changing your baby at the table? This has happened to me at least 5 times in the last couple years. I've caught people setting up. I tell them there is a change station in the bathroom. Do it there, not where people who are eating can stare at your kid's crappy bum. My experience is fine dining based, so it's not quite the same. The type of things that would irritate me are not the same as in a family establishment. So for fine dining, try to consider these things. 1. Don't bring your kids. I know you love them, but in a place that is typically about $100 a person, no one else wants to see your kids there. 2. Don't stack your plates. I have a method for taking things off the table. 3. Don't sweep your crumbs into the floor. Would you do that at home? I have tools and will clean it up myself without getting crap all over the floor. 4. If your glass, non-alcoholic beverage, is less than 60% full, I promise I see it. In fact, often I will approach a table and say, other than tea, is there anything that I can get for you? Many annoying customers will say, I need more tea. Yes, I know, that's why I said what I said, which leads me to my final point. 5. Listen to me. I assure you I know more about our food and drinks than you do. In fine dining, your server is not there to entertain you. Their job is to be invisible for the most part. Fine dining servers will help you and get out of the way. If I am talking to you, it is probably something of value, somewhat related. If you say something and I am within 20 feet, I heard it. Bonus: if you are eating and someone drops something, don't clap or cheer. I assure you there is nothing that pisses the staff off more in that moment than calling attention to it. As the matter of fact, I do sweep crumbs into the floor at home. I've been working in restaurants for 8 years as a manager and a server. Here are some things I despise. I know the owner. Can I get a discount? No, you cannot. The only way you get a discount is if you're on the approved list. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about it. Snapping, grabbing, or pulling on me to get my attention. It only makes you get worse service after I've been released from your grip, allowing your children to run wild. When I first started serving, I accidentally tripped over a child while walking with a huge tray of drinks. I fell down, spilled the drinks all over me, and got reamed out by the mother for kicking her child, who was sitting on the floor in the middle of the walkway, the kids' table. Allowing your children to sit separately with no adult supervision is nice for you, but it's a nightmare to deal with and clean up for me. The verbal tip: you are the best server I've ever had equals 5% tip on $200 bill. Saying everything is fine when it's not. Then calling a manager over because everything is obviously not fine, and you didn't want to hurt the server's feelings. Helping me clear off tables because you think I'm cute. It only makes you seem like a weirdo. One thing I absolutely adore: leaving comments. Write on TripAdvisor if you had a good experience. Write a note on the signed credit card receipt saying your server was great. This ensures the manager will see the comment later on. I refer to it as the lip tip, and I hate it. Also, if someone tells you they're going to tip really well, generally means that they are not. When you have something discounted or for whatever reason taken off the check, and you tip only on what you paid for. Cisco guys get half off at my work and they never tip from the full amount. They get half off and I get half a tip. That's crazy. One time a group of my friends and I were eating, and for whatever reason the manager gave us our meal for free. I think because of a long wait for food, but we didn't care, and the waitress was pretty good, so we just tipped her what we would have paid for the meal. Making the same entire jokes because you don't know me. I found myself doing this, and when I began waiting tables, I saw it reflected back. I can't speak for other servers, but I'm there to make your dining experience everything you expect. If you feel shy or awkward, that's okay. You're not being judged. We don't have time to judge the normal tables. You know what you want or know why you came in. We're there to live up to that. You don't have to make small talk to make me like you. And the same dad type jokes are like nails on a chalkboard. Just be pleasant and normal and let me make the experience awesome for you. Follow up: if you bring your kids out with you and you're meeting friends, don't expect us to babysit. We used to get a table of regulars, 3-4 couples, who would bring their kids along and seat them at a separate table. Logistics worked out with ordering and tickets without issue, but without fail, the kids would grow restless after 20 minutes and spend the next hour making the restaurant their playground. If you can't mind and tend to your children, leave them with a babysitter or go somewhere else. We're dashing about at full speed trying to tend to everyone in a timely manner. Having children at play in our traffic lanes, especially when carrying trays full of hot food or glasses full of cold beverages, is just asking for trouble. And don't let them skate around the joint in those damned Heelys shoes. As a former waiter, I loathed having customers snap their fingers whistle to get my attention. I'm not a dog. You are not my master. Just a jackbutt who may end up being served questionable food. I once had a lady pull the back of my shirt while I was helping another table. I've never felt so much rage. Coming in with a table of 10 plus people and leaving crappy tips. In most places, you can't split the bill with that many people and the tip is usually included. But at my restaurant we have a very primitive ordering system and it's usually just easier to run a table like that as 10 separate tickets. Through this, I have noticed that old ladies are the worst tippers in the world. I've taken a lot of tables with 10 plus old ladies eating Sunday dinner that have left little to sometimes no tips, despite the fact that I had to give other tables in my section to another server in order to be a good waitress to them. Once I had a group like this that took up both of our large tables in the back, and got miserable compensation for it. One lady only left me a 50-cent tip. I've heard a lot of restaurant goers say that tipping is unfair and is just an added fee. You're right, it is unfair. Unfair in that it is literally all we make. After taxes, we have no paycheck. We get paid $2 an hour in most states. So if you decide you'd rather someone wait on you hand and foot to make sure you don't have to get up and get a drink yourself or that you have enough ketchup for your fries or whatever it is you want, be willing to actually pay for it. If it's not worth it to you, go to McDonald's or something. Never grab your server. No exceptions. Seriously, you'd be surprised by how many people have the nerve to grab my arm while I'm passing their table to get me to stop. Touching is a big no. No, if I am not looking in your direction or simply missed your hand wave, loudly but politely call excuse me if you bothered to remember my name when I introduced myself at the start of the meal. It'll be even easier for me to notice you're calling me in a loud, crowded dining room. If your server had dropped the check at your table, kindly put a form of payment inside in a prompt manner. Don't just let it sit there for the extra half hour while you talk. Most restaurants won't make you leave the table after you pay and you can sit there as long as you want. But not paying means the server has to constantly remember to check back with you, which is time consuming. And nothing is more awkward than your server picking up the checkbook only to see you haven't applied payment and having to put it back down on the table. Also, it makes things faster for you when you are ready to leave, and you don't need to wave down your server to take your credit card after they've long forgotten about you. If something is wrong with your food, let us know as soon as possible. Most servers will check back 3 minutes after dropping on trays and ask how everything is tasting. This is the time to say you are missing the extra chicken, or the steak is the wrong temperature, or you asked for a different sauce. Don't wait until you've eaten the whole thing and we've already cleared the dishes to say you didn't like it. I can't fix it by then. At best the manager can comp the dish, and that makes you seem like you are complaining just to get free food, which is tacky, and you will be gossiped about in the break room. Please be aware that you are not the only table your server has and not everything can be done at the exact moment you want it done. One time I was serving a table and at the time they came in they were my only table. I checked in 4 times to take their order, but they weren't ready each time. Right after I checked on them that 4th time, I get the dinner rush of 4 or 5 tables. Now, at this point I have to greet all of them and give them menus and such. This lasted maybe 3 minutes at the most when a child from the first table taps me from behind to tell me they were ready to order. So I return 3 minutes after they were telling me for the 4th time that they weren't ready to order yet and hear one of them say, "We thought you forgot about us." No, you didn't want to order for a half hour when it was slower, but you all of a sudden need to order at the exact moment I need to help other tables. Yeah, I understand you want fast service, but I am not going to ignore other tables just for you. To me, it's the equivalent of standing in the middle of line then yelling to the front desk that they forgot about you. You are not forgotten, you just have to wait your turn. Don't shake your empty drink glass at me, don't let your bastard children run wild, and don't make stupid jokes that I have already heard 10 times today. Hard at work or hardly working, more like hardly tolerable. Where I come from the drinks are twice as strong and half the price. Great. Go back there. What can I get that's sweet but not too sweet, and strong but doesn't taste like booze? Oh, and I only have $5. You can get out, now. If you go into a coffee shop and say to me I'll just have a coffee, it makes me want to throttle you. The queue is nearly out the door, man, be specific. Also, don't let your kids run around. I'm carrying hot drinks or fully stacked trays about the place. Half the time I'm already tempting Lady Gravity to play her cruel hand by carrying multiple plates drinks. I don't need to be dodging toddlers at the same time. One of these days a kid is going to a latte mug to the soft spot, and I will get the blame. Another pointer for the parents: in a crowded cafe restaurant, don't leave your massive kiddie chariot in the middle of the floor. I can't always maneuver around that behemoth. I will never understand why such tiny people need such a huge contraptions to be carted around in. Specific to coffee shops here. I don't know about other places, but ordering a takeaway does not give you some kind of freaking fast pass to make your hasty exit with your 4 large lattes in the space of 3 minutes. It's a queue system. Those who have place sitting orders will get served before you if they ordered before you. If we are busy, sometimes I tell those who order takeaways there might a 5-minute wait, and they look at me with a look of outraged confusion and say, but mine's a takeaway. Yes, I know. I just took your order. Can you not see the room of people who ordered before you? Not telling these people what I think of them can be challenging, to say the least. Another thing, the sign says free Wi-Fi, not free Wi-Fi and technical support. If it's slow or you disconnect, can't connect, it is either A, you are incapable of entering the 8 characters of the password without making an error, or B, one too many hipster is busy Instagramming his her latte art that they got on his her coffee whilst streaming some music by a band artist you probably wouldn't have heard of. I can do nothing about this, and most likely, I have better things to be doing. And finally, I know I am the one thing standing between you and your sweet C8H10N402, but I am a human being. I hate being in work as much as you hate the fact that you are about to go to work. Don't treat me like an extension of Till. I don't need that crap. Especially first thing in the morning when I'm still as groggy as you, and that 15 minutes break is nothing but a distant glimmer of light in the douchebag infested clusterfuck that is my shift. Taking a plate of food or cup that you ordered off of my tray while I take care of someone next to you. I understand you're just trying to help save me some time and make my job easier, but you need to understand I'm essentially balancing that tray. Putting anything on or taking anything off without me seeing you do so ruins that balance and will almost always end in a loud, embarrassing, and potentially expensive drop. Bread is not an appetizer. If it's an establishment that serves bread as part of the dining experience, rest assured your bread will come. True story time. Me. Welcome to Random Eatery. My name is Alan and I'll be taking care of you this evening. Would you like to start with a drink while I give you a moment to look over the menu? Pardon? Bread. Me. Okay, but I'm not sure how you're going to get that through a straw. He wasn't even like, could we get some bread? Nope, just the singular word. I pretty much knew I wasn't going to get tipped, so I just went ahead and had fun with them. The tip completely lived up to my expectation. Service was stellar, by the way, as a former bartender as well. Settle your bar tab before you go to your table if you order drinks while waiting. Waiters and waitresses, as a former dishwasher, please dump out your ramekins. Dump all the food in the trash, and don't toss your plates and silver into our area, just set it down. We work just as hard as you and get paid minimum wage. No tips for us. Plus we have to close up, so be nice to us. Make the payment slightly visible sticking out of the check presenter so we know you are ready to pay. Nothing worse than not knowing if you have put cash or card in it, then coming to take it to find out that you have not, or that you did, and were wondering what was taking us so long to come take your payment. Also, don't guard the thing like it's featuring Knox. Per my girlfriend, do not walk in at 9:55 and order a drink, slowly sipping it until 10:45 when the place closes at 10. A lot of people, apparently, are not aware that this is rude and causes the staff to work for an extra hour. Keep in mind hourly wage is like $2. Most of the pay is from tips. Respect the closing time of the establishment. 5-10 minutes past, no problem, but don't be a dong. I'm the closest thing to a waiter where I work. If you go to places like Chipotle, Subway, anything close to a fast food restaurant, and you're paying with cash when it's fairly busy, please don't try to make exact change. Yes, it would be easier, but chances are I can hand you a couple coins faster than you can dig up the change out of your wallet. This is appreciated if there is nobody behind you, but don't hold up the line like this. Touch my tray while I'm trying to serve you and you completely deserve anything that spills on you. I don't care if I've got 6 cocktails stacked on a tray, a sizzling dish in the other hand and a book between my arm. I am balanced. Do not touch me. And yes, at this point my tray is an extension of myself. Wowza. I haven't worked in a restaurant in 2 years, but that frustration boiled back up fast. One time while working as a waiter at the Olive Garden, I was bring a tray full of drinks back to a table of approximately 10 people. Now in order to fit everyone at one table, we had a table set up that was just 2 tables pushed together with a tablecloth stretched over them tightly to make it appear as if it were one table. So I'm there with my tray of drinks and I'm sitting them down one at a time. And as I'm sitting the third drink down, I accidentally place in between where the 2 table meet, and because the tablecloth was stretched so tight I didn't notice that the one table was slightly higher than the other. So as I let go of this drink to sit it down in what feels like slow motion, it begins to tilt, and as I'm trying to reach to grab it to keep it from falling, I made a huge mistake. Now I don't know why I did what I did next, but for whatever reason, in an effort to save the tipping glass, my gut reaction was to throw the tray that was full of drink over my left shoulder. The glass ended up tipping over anyways, and I hurled a tray full of drinks across the Olive Garden. Serious, when have you asked to speak to the manager? Someone at my doctor's office fricked up and changed my medical insurance but put the wrong date in, which put me in the hook for the full cost of my preventive care. I tried explaining that there's no way it was my fault, since according to the records, the date of my visit occurred months before my new insurance even existed. Sorry, nothing we can do about it. Yeah, balls. That amount of money would literally destroy my life. So I kept calling both the office and the insurance company, collecting information and escalating with both of them. Finally, some amazing woman from the insurance company said, "Just give me the number of your doctor's office and I will deal with this." I did that. Then she called me back about 10 minutes later to let me know everything is all set and I no longer have to worry about any problem. I really wish I could have listened into that conversation. This happened to me with my daughter before. Someone had entered the wrong date of service in billing, so it charged me the full amount. All I had to do was call the billing number on my bill and they fixed it easily. You shouldn't have had to go through all of that for something so easily fixable. Was at Hooters watching a UFC event. Ordered 20 wings and a pretzel with a beer. After 30 minutes, nothing. Not even a beer. Hour after originally ordering, still nothing. Ended up asking the manager if my order got lost or something. He apologized and said my order is now first priority. Another 30 minutes and still no food. Manager walked past me and asked if I finished it all that fast, and I told him it never even came. The guy got angry, went to the kitchen and made it himself, brought it out within 15 minutes, and told me whole meal was on the house and that anything else I wanted was for free. When a bouncer screamed in my ear with such vigor that he spat in my eye, he mistakenly thought I had brought in my own booze when they were left by the previous occupants of the stall. I had a bouncer take my legitimate ID and refuse to give it back, even after I confirmed my identity with credit cards, because he thought I was underage. I was 27. In an email with Blizzard, I was a kid at the time and they were charging me for a month where I had already paid by using a 2-month subscription card and locked me out until I paid in cash. I emailed them letting them know that the balance is incorrect and that they should have my 2-month credit on my account. I was given one of those automatic responses that didn't even relate to what my response was. Basically saying that the balance due must be paid in cash and not with credit. Even thought I was saying the credit was on my account and they didn't charge correctly. I remember seeing somewhere on Reddit that if you email requesting to speak to a manager 3 times that the system flags it and it will be reviewed by the company's escalations department. So I emailed back saying I felt like they didn't even read my concern and I thought it would be best that I speak to a manager. I reworded this statement 3 times using manager of course. Well, I can at least confirm that it worked out well for me cause I got a response back from the same person who emailed me the robotic reply before saying they were sorry and that they would remove the balance and throw in an extra 2 months free. I came out feeling quite satisfied. Found glass shards in a cake at Sizzlers in Parramatta. I called the manager and he said I was probably just trying to scam a free meal. Note, I hadn't said anything about a free meal. I just told him I found glass in my cake. Looked like part of a glass mixing bowl. Part of the chunks were fluted. Butthole. I had a gold gym membership that I needed to cancel since I was moving. Which BTW, they ridiculously require proof that you are moving in order to cancel. I cancelled at the end of May. They, by contract, required you to pay the month after you cancel. BS. But whatever. I didn't want to argue, so I paid for May and then June. Then July comes around and I am charged again. I call the gym and guy on the phone tries to argue with me that the charge is correct because you are charged the month after you cancel. I try to explain to him that June comes before July and that I was already charged my punishment for leaving the gym fee in June. He was getting nasty with me on the phone, so I finally asked for the manager. He said, fine, but she is going to say the same thing I did. He got a manager on the phone. I explained to her that I should not have been charged for July. She agreed and reversed the charge in like a 30-second conversation. Screw you, random gym receptionist. This gym cancelling issue needs to have a federal law made out for it. It's amazing how pervasive the issue is yet no one does anything. I went to the sandwich shop and the wrap they gave me was 95% lettuce. No exaggeration. It was supposed to be a turkey, avocado, and BLT. It had half a slice of turkey, 1 slice of bacon, 1 tomato slice, and like 1 tablespoon of old, brown avocado spread. It was like they realized they didn't have enough ingredients to make my wrap, but instead of just telling me to order something else, they stuffed it full of iceberg lettuce thinking I wouldn't notice. I brought it back and showed it to the manager who suddenly couldn't speak English anymore, even though just 10 minutes before he spoke it perfectly to his employees. I just left because I had to go back to work. Was eating at a restaurant. Place was packed and I was told by my server that they had 2 call-outs and that he was sorry he was taking forever with the food. Food ended up coming 45 minutes and never got a refill until he came by another 15 minutes later. Guy was wicked kind and kept his cool even after having another couple of people complain that he was slow, and I saw this poor guy tell them the situation and they barely acted like it made any difference. The guy looked haggard but kept being kind to everyone. I suddenly realized I hadn't seen any other server but him. He was the only guy working. I told him I wanted to speak to his manager and I could see him panic a little, and I told him, don't worry, it's nothing bad. He brings over his manager and I tell him what an amazing job this guy's done and how he has been extremely kind and courteous to everyone here and working hard. I even told him that I think he deserves a raise from all of this because he shouldn't lose someone this dedicated in the long run. Guy looked grateful and I told him in person that he's got a good work ethic and to not forget why he pushes himself as hard as he does. He should be proud of the work he does. I serve and bartend and there have been a few times we've been extremely short-handed and it's only one server and myself. No one bothers to look around and see us running around and waiting on every single table, answering the phone and seating these people. They just complain and tip like crap. There's some that pay attention but it's mostly the buttholes. Comcast had been dicking me around. gave me incorrect equipment. Incorrect advice caused me to waste an entire day troubleshooting the problems they caused. They offered to credit me for the prorated portion of my bill that would cover internet portion only for the length of the outage they caused and nothing else. I asked to be escalated. Joke's on me, they just never called me back and credited nothing. I switched providers and would never use their services again. LOL, don't worry, every dang ISP does crap like this. I do tech support for one and it amazes me how crappy some of the other employees are, to the point where I have no idea how they are even employed still. I bought my truck used and it only came with one key. I went to the dealership to get a new key and 2 fobs made up. I called to check price before I came in and they agreed it could be done for around $250 for everything, parts and labor. I showed up and handed over my one gray key. Little did I know this was the valet key and the other keys and fob could not be programmed with this key. They would have to do a master reprogram. The service writer that took my key did not mention this to me, nor did they say anything for 45 minutes while I waited. At the end of this 45 minutes they called me in and showed me a new black master key already cut but not programmed and the fobs which had not been programmed yet. They told me it was gonna be an extra $200 to finish the job. I told them I could afford an extra $200 and I wasn't gonna be able to do it at the time. They said that was fine, I would just have to pay a restocking fee on the fobs and I would have to pay for the key, which wouldn't work as it wasn't programmed. I was not having it and they should have asked me if I wanted to continue after noticing that it was gonna require extra work. They wouldn't budge. I asked for the manager who wouldn't budge. Finally I asked to talk to his boss, the dealership manager. Told him that it was bulls and they were not gonna force me to pay for extra work that wasn't quoted or keys that didn't work. He agreed, acknowledged their screw up and offered to do everything for the original quoted price or let me walk without paying anything. I had them finish the job and I went on my way. Fast forward 2 months and I'm out at a bar. In walks the original service guy that tried to hose me. He looks at me, asks where he knows me from. I wasn't sure, so he asks if I drive a truck. Asks some details about my truck and confirms it was me. He turns a little pale and says, "I remember you." I said, "I'm sure you do." He then proceeds to admit to me that they saw a young guy with an admittedly douchey truck come in and thought they could squeeze me for more money. He said he worked off commission and he wasn't gonna apologize, but he would buy me a beer for standing my ground. I would have declined the beer and told him to find some freaking morals. An employee in a nice French Quarter restaurant took a dump in the men's room, then walked out without washing his hands. Moments later another employee took a pee and also walked out without washing. I didn't have to ask for a manager, because I spotted her and discreetly told her what I had seen. Makes me wonder about places where employees don't use the same restroom as customers. I was at a restaurant, and they completely forgot about my order. I didn't have time to wait, so I asked for a refund. The guy refused even though he was the person who took my order, and he was complete C. I asked to speak to the manager, but he was an even bigger C. I went home without a refund. I called corporate and was able to get a refund. Fortunately, I'm not one to want to speak to the manager, but the guy was in butthole when I asked for a refund. Considering him and the manager were both C, I'm never going there again. This has happened to me a couple of times, and I just go to the cashier and pay for any drinks that have been served and walk out. I don't know exactly how I would accomplish this if there wasn't an actual cashier though. My favorite story is when I went to the LCBO, liquor stores in Ontario, near my new place of work. I had found a new coffee whiskey that looked cool to try, but I didn't know which of like 4 brands would be best. Got asked if I needed help by a nice employee. Then when I asked about which coffee whiskey was best, he showed me all 4, told me which price points they were at, and which flavor profiles it'd be getting with each, and then recommended the one he liked best. I thanked him. Then when I got to the cashier I asked if there was a manager around. They called for the manager and a lady comes up, but with a guy who helped me in tow. Turns out he was next in line for management actually and was acting manager if she was on break or away for whatever reason. He asked if everything was fine and everyone got a good laugh out of the fact I really wanted a manager so I could say how amazing the service he gave me. They all thanked me. I thanked them. And then I got stellar service every time I went to that store. 3 of us had dinner reservations at a restaurant in Metro Phoenix. We were seated outside, and it began to rain. Our server moved us to an empty table under a canopy. The manager then berated him loudly, within our earshot, for moving us out of the rain, yelling that people with reservations who had yet to arrive wouldn't have a dry place to be seated. The server gave us excellent service throughout the meal. We paid the bill and gave him an excellent tip, and then I went and asked for the manager. He came out in the middle of the restaurant to talk to me, so I explained loudly that the server and the rest of the staff were great, but that he, the manager, was rude. And WTF was the server supposed to do? Leave us sitting in the rain? Throughout our conversation other servers and staff were walking behind him, catching my eye and smiling. You're good people. I was in a Panera Bread and the woman ahead of me was asking for help finding another restaurant where she was supposed to meet a friend. She was older and obviously a little confused. The employee spent at least 10 minutes with her, helping her find the restaurant on her phone, calling the other restaurant to confirm their location, and going over directions to get there with her a few times. She was flustered, which made it even harder for her to process everything. The entire time he was patient and kind. She left without buying anything. Afterwards I spoke with the manager to tell her what an awesome job he did and how impressed I was. People tend only to complain about what goes wrong, and I really wanted them to hear about everything he did right. Growing up, every time my parents asked for a manager it was to compliment our server. My parents are stellar people and I'm super lucky to have them, and it taught me a lot. Found a weird metal orb looking thing in my soup. Turned out that the bowl of the ladle had fallen off and nobody in the kitchen could find it. Free dessert. I was very drunk in college and we had just gone through the drive-thru at our local McDonald's. It was late, and I expected crappy burgers. This mother sucker flipping burgers had toasted the buns on my McDouble. The cheese ratio was perfect, and all the sauces were in recognizable swirls. I called up on the way home. I wasn't driving. Demanded to talk to the night manager, super drunkenly, and I told him that I had the best MCD cheeseburger I'd ever had in my life and told him that whoever had made it deserved a raise. I never checked back, but gods do I hope that guy at least got a hug. Happiest I've ever been in my life with a fast food experience. Of all the stories I've read here, this was the best one. Bravo to that guy. Some buddies and I were grabbing dinner at a Texas roadhouse. Family sitting behind us was loud and obnoxious the entire time, and their waiter was also our waiter. We took notice of what was going on, and how professional the waiter was acting in the face of this nonsense, and when we were done eating, we asked for the manager to come over. We talked up the waiter and how well he did in the face of rude and obnoxious customers. Manager seemed to really appreciate the good words, and you could tell when she was walking up, she was expecting complaints. Actually elevated past the supervisor, was on the phone with a rep from my wife's health insurance provider. We were told that the upcoming birth of our first child wouldn't count as a qualifying life event for me to join the insurance plan. It's a much better plan for the same cost as my marketplace plan. After waiting on hold for an hour, the supervisor provided the same information. I counted that the plan policy docs don't specify that, and instead give the impression that a QLE counts for any dependent, which, incidentally, would also be in keeping with the text of the Federal Register, which I quoted. I asked for the specific refusal in writing. She agreed, but cautioned it may take a few weeks, as she'd have to write a letter, then get it approved by legal. Fine by me. Fast forward a few weeks, and they called to tell us legal wouldn't approve the letter, because we were right. An email was also sent out to all CSRs informing them of the correct policy. I feel bad for anyone who got the same wrong info as we were given and gave up. An a-hole in front of me at Target was yelling and screaming at the poor cashier about having to pay 10 cents for a plastic bag. He left her in tears, and the last thing he said was, "I'm going to get you fired." I asked her to call her manager while she rang me up, and I told the manager about the interaction I had seen. I also asked why, even though he was standing in the vicinity, did he not stop that man from verbally assaulting his employee. Then I asked for the district manager's information so I could tell them about how the cashier was lovely, she wasn't at fault, and complain about the manager failing to step in. Heck frickin' yeah for calling out that crappy manager, you rock. Many years ago, I bought a new laptop. I was also suckered into buying the extended warranty. Laptop craps out after a year. No problem. Still covered by the extended warranty. I take it in to be fixed. The hum and haw. And figure my laptop just works. I just have to hold in the power button for a few minutes to drain the capacitors. Well, that doesn't do it. So when it craps out again, I take it back. They hold onto it for a few days. Say it's fixed. It craps out again. This time, I ask to speak to a manager. All the manager does is offer to sell me a new one. I told him to get bent. Anyway, the 5th time, they finally honor the extended warranty and just give me a new one. The manager had to come down to sign the paperwork, and as he handed me that new laptop, he said through gritted teeth, "Well, you've been awfully persistent in this matter, haven't you? Yup, now give me my laptop." Butthole. Never went back there, and the place is now out of business. Jesus, that's freaking annoying. You weren't being persistent, you were getting the dang warranty you paid for. I didn't ask for the manager, but was the manager on duty. I work for O'Reilly Auto Parts. We had a disabled customer come in and need a battery replaced in her truck. I had already spoken to her on the phone but was busy with another customer, so one of my guys got her the battery and a chair for her to sit in. He started that to take her old one out, but couldn't get the old one off because it was so corroded the terminal wouldn't come off. Before I could get outside to help, another employee who was off that day came in to buy some things to clean his truck. He saw our other co-worker struggling with the battery. He spent his own money on battery cleaner, went outside and sprayed the terminal, stayed until it soaked long enough to get the terminal off and helped install the new battery. The woman was incredibly grateful for their help and insisted they take a tip, but per company policy neither would. She asked to speak with me because she was so happy, but also upset they wouldn't take her money. I passed along her praise to the store manager, and she actually called a few days later to speak with the store manager because she didn't want their actions to go unnoticed. She now refuses to shop at other auto parts stores because everyone else treated her disability like a burden onto them, and some even would try to refuse her service dog in the store. Years ago, I was eating outside of a McDonald's when a stranger nearby had a medical emergency. I didn't have a cell phone, so I ran inside and asked the guy behind the counter, "Where's the phone here? There's a man having an emergency outside." This butthole tries to dong me around, saying that the phone behind the counter was only for employees and asking whether the man outside was even a customer. I tried to explain for about 5 seconds before, thankfully, a man in line who overheard whipped out his cell and dialed 911. The stranger outside was rushed to the hospital, so I never learned his status, but the moment the ambulance left I was back inside demanding to talk to a manager. Gets me heated just thinking about it. This butthole tries to dong me around, saying that the phone behind the counter was only for employees and asking whether the man outside was even a customer. In some jurisdictions that could be prosecuted as a felony. Interfering with the reporting of an emergency is not regarded fondly by the law. Went through the drive-thru at my local Whataburger. At about 11 one night the woman working the window was about middle-aged, extremely obese. This matters, and in tears, because several of her younger co-workers were saying really mean things to her, saying it so loudly that I could hear them saying it through the window, over my engine and my radio. Things like, "You are such a fat freaking bee, you should be hunted like an elephant, and you probably can't even see your pee to wash it. You are so fat. I bet that thing is rotting off, it is so nasty," and telling her she should kill herself because she was a fat loser that worked at Whataburger and was old just. They were freaking vile. She was doing her best to hold it together, but she was crying. I got my food, tried to say something kind to her. Then I told my husband that we were not leaving yet. I parked the car, walked in, and asked for a manager. When he came to the front, I told him everything I heard, pointed out which of the little shoots I could identify and repeat their specific taunts, told him that the woman handled herself professionally and deserved a raise, and asked those guys what the heck their payoff was from picking on a woman that they deemed less than them. Then I pulled the classic old lady move and told them their mothers should be ashamed they raised such hateful sons. Manager was apologetic, offered to refund my money, but I told him I did not care about anything like that. I came in because it was balls that his employees thought it was okay to treat another employee that way, and if he wanted to make it right, he would handle that crap so she would have a safe work environment, because their behavior was unacceptable. I don't know what happened, but she still works there, but on the day shift now. You're good people. Karen gets owned by her own signature. So I am on mobile. This happened yesterday. I'm a bellman for a tourist hotel that has had a mask policy since we reopened, but with the mandate we now have a questionnaire about health as you check in. Cast, OP bellman who is so over all the bulls I have to put up with from these people. K Karen. Sup PM supervisor. A group of 3 had checked in and were wandering around the lobby, one with his nose out, one holding a mask against her face, and one without one at all. OP, hey, folks, if we could wear those properly it would be very appreciated. K, but I am staying in this hotel. OP, it's a state mandate. I am sorry. K, well the mandate says if you have a medical condition you don't have to wear one. OP, so you're stating you have medical issues? K, yes, they give me headaches, so I won't be wearing one. OP, I'm sorry for that inconvenience. At this point she gets a huge smug smile that lets me know she thinks she has one. OP, you're staying here? Did you check in yourself or did someone else check you in? K, I checked myself in. I am not a child. OP, well then you remember signing the health questionnaire when you checked in? The one that asked if you had medical issues preventing mask wearing and if you planned on wearing a mask? K, I didn't sign anything like that. What's your name? OP, it's Goose Cheese. And what room are you in? K, I don't have to tell you that. You'll stalk me. OP, no, I just wanted so I can find your questionnaire. If you will come to the front desk, please. Sup, I have it here. I remember them checking in. He slides it under the sneeze guard and I grab it. OP, your name is Karen McDowsh. Is this your signature? K, I didn't know that's what that was. You expect me to read every little thing you idiots hand me? OP, just the 5-foot sign about masks and the check-in paperwork, which states that you have no medical issues and you agree to our mask policy. K, what can you do about it? Are you the manager? OP, no, I'm the bellman, but I have a duty to our guests and staff. K, I'm a guest you idiot, I just told you that. OP, if you break hotel policy, that can change. So which is it? Are you a policy abiding guest or do you have medical issues that will prevent your stay with us tonight? K, ridiculous. I would never have come if I'd known it'd be harassed like this. My town doesn't have any mask policy and everyone is fine. OP, so you'll wear the mask? K, I made these reservations last week. Everywhere else will be full. OP, so you're okay wearing the mask inside the hotel? Now I have a smug smile under my mask but my eyes are loud enough for her to notice. She grabs the mask that's hanging on her wrist and holds it on her face. Heading for the elevator, I can hear her mumble under her breath. As the doors close I see her pull the mask away and wave it at me. She didn't come out of her room all night. Thank God. Thanks for the award, fellow hospitality worker. I have never gotten so many upvotes. And I want to thank my boss for giving my co-workers and I a small license to defend ourselves from the people who would use us and berate us. He is the real hero, I am just an overconfident bellman. Holy crap, a gold. My first gold. Thank you so much. It's amazing how people draw the line at wearing a couple layers of cloth on their face. And even Marizo drawing it at I'll wear it, but not properly. I have severe asthma. It's genuinely difficult to breathe with a mask on because I can't breathe properly to begin with, because nothing my doctors do keeps me better than functioning. I still wear a freaking mask because I don't want to die or kill anyone else. Frick anti-maskers. I've said this once and I will keep saying this. If you are a person with a medical condition that keeps you from wearing a mask, then more than likely you are part of the high risk group that should be limiting or completely not going out. The majority of people I know who have conditions that exempt them from wearing the mask if they choose not to, because they can die. The people who claim they have a medical condition and get belligerent are just buttholes that don't like being told what to do because of insert conspiracy theory of choice. Wearing a mask is, IMO, courtesy towards others, basic decency. I'm willing to do this so my hypothetical germs that I may not even have won't reach you. Refusing to wear a mask is a flare-lit red flag of a lack of empathy, courtesy and humanity. It immediately flips any respect I may have had for the idiot down into negative numbers. MMHMM preach. I struggle with wearing a mask. I have panic attacks from previous trauma. If one happens, the mask comes off for a bit but the mask doesn't come off until I am well away from everyone, in a corner, where I can't take a few minutes to regroup. I put my mask back on and go about my business if possible, or I leave to go to my car or home. It's a struggle, but it isn't impossible to wear a mask. Thank you for continuing to wear a mask despite having legitimate issues. You're good people. 3. I don't get the people that say they can't breathe then proceed to hold it to their faces rather than putting it on. I guess it's a smidge better than nothing, but holding it there with your hand would actually make breathing harder, wouldn't it? Agreed, plus you look like a tool. I was grabbing lunch at McDonald's on break and some guy walks in with a tissue held in front of his face by his glasses and a second guy using his t-shirt. An employee goes to hand them masks. Shirt guy puts it on. He probably just forgot his, and tissue guy says, does this not count as a cloth covering? Keep in mind how thin tissues are here. The McDonald's employee says no, and instead of accepting the mask, the guy leaves in a huff. And myself and another customer waiting on the McChickens along with that employee start laughing. Some people are just ridiculous. I mean, the guy would rather have a tissue hanging in front of his face than wear a mask that's handed to him for 2 minutes while he orders fast food. Ridiculous. It's amazing how many COVID doesn't bother me because I have an immune system. People all suddenly have these severe health issues that prevent an easily breathable mask from being worn. Ha, true. Too frail to live, too stupid to die. Some people make me sick. Being asked to serve in the military and possibly being killed is a big ask. Being a fireman, teacher or policeman for no respect and little pay is a big ask. People like yourself working with the public during this pandemic is a big ask. Putting on a stupid mask is the easiest patriotic thing we've ever been asked. Thank you. In Oregon it is a face covering. We have a lot of people who go with the plastic face shields if they have a problem with an actual mask. Our FDM is one of those people because having something on her face makes her claustrophobic and has anxiety attacks. We give her a hard time for her welding mask, but she wears something. It's like people think we want to wear a mask anytime we are outside of our own homes and cars. I don't know a single person who is enjoying this. People also think that we enjoy babysitting every person who walks into our business to make sure they are following stage mandates. I have asthma that is well controlled. In the 2 years prior to this spring I had used my inhaler or nebulizer twice. The end of March I caught COVID. In 4 days I used 8 doses of medication for my nebulizer. I would get up in the morning and use it until I could breathe mostly normally, lay on the couch until I couldn't, and then use it again. Without it I have no doubt I would have been hospitalized. I just don't understand people that won't wear the mask. That's awful. I hope you are all healed up and not suffering any complications. My asthma action plan is to take my inhaler every 6 hours if I get sick. The bronchitis came out of nowhere and I was at the doctor the next day. I normally avoid extra doctor visits because I don't want to catch anything else. I joke that I must have a sticker on my chart because I can always get a sick appointment. My last checkup was a telehealth visit and that was nice. I don't understand why people have such issues with the masks. Quit complaining just to complain. Be a decent human being for 1 second of your meaningless life. Anti-masker equals pro-plague. It's way easy to defend being anti-something. Let them defend being pro the thing that killed millions of people. Better yet, anti-masker equals pro-choice. If they have the right to choose what they put on their bodies, then women have the right to choose what they do with their bodies. Let them try to struggle with the morality of that argument. My eyes are loud enough for her to notice. I absolutely love this phrase, and intend to use it whenever I can from now on. Please feel free. I read in another comment thread about how the government said you have to wear pants and mostly everyone does. If you want to protest for your right to choose, wear the cloth bit that can save lives and run around pantsless instead. If you won't, you aren't truly protesting. What's interesting is in my city it's actually legal for anyone to be topless in public places, but hardly anyone with boobs actually take advantage of this except during certain celebrations. But my city is requiring masks, so there are people wearing shirts even though they don't have to but not masks. Personally speaking, I think that the mask policies, as they are currently written, need a little bit of editing. Make the wording say wear a mask properly instead of just wear a mask. I tell myself that it would cut down on people wearing them as chin warmers or as a rectangular yarmulke. I work in a coffee shop attached to a hotel. Just had a family this afternoon walk in wearing masks. The 2 teenage boys had them pulled down, but the mom and dad had them on properly. I motioned for the boys to pull their masks up and they apologize and comply. The mom moves up to the window and pulls her mask down to order. In the background, the dad pulled his down to rest on his chin, while the boys keep theirs on until they go to leave. Like, I still don't know if she was trying to do a power move because I bugged her kids about them or she didn't hear me, but we have a mask sign at each entrance and by the register. Like, I really appreciate the guests who wear them properly their entire visit. They are few and far between. I wear it all day except for drink breaks and when I'm alone in the bathroom. Additionally, the AC has been malfunctioning for weeks, so we've been working in 77/79 minimum, 86/87 maximum most days. The other day the AC was full on dead and it was in the 80s, all with a mask. Unless you have a legit medical issue, it's really not that hard once you learn how to deal with it. I wish I had the power to bug people about it. We can hand out masks, but we were told that we aren't the mask police and that our guests are paying $200 plus a night. They have to be given their due respect. QIRL, but I make a living wage and can't lose this job. Props to you and your management for enforcing it and not letting people slide. Props to you from not putting someone's head into a ceiling fan. Over here in Spain, masks are mandatory, even out on the streets. Many tourists comply, but then there are those who think that, since there are tourists, the mask rule doesn't apply to them. I remember a friend of mine politely telling a man walking down the street in nothing but some Union Jack swim shorts to please wear a mask, just to be told, I'm British, I don't need to wear a mask. Now, this attitude, plus lack of social distancing by pretty much everyone, has resulted in a resurgence of the virus. The UK and Germany warning their citizens about traveling to Mallorca, and therefore ending the tourist season in mid-August. The last hotels are going to shut this coming weekend. So, always wear your masks, folks. You might not only ruin your health, but also the economy of a whole state. Please extend this message to your management. I would gladly bring my business to your hotel, not only because they employ such conscientious employees as yourself, but also because they still have bellpersons on staff. It's an antique hotel. At least I don't have to wear a stupid hat. My smock is old timey looking with shoulder stripes and whatnot, but it's a good gig. People appreciate it. What the heck is up with these children? Yes, not adults, children. And even then I have seen children wear masks properly. But I digress. I am so sick and tired of this, man. Like, how hard is it to wear a dang cloth on your face? Man, this year has really shown me how many selfish people we have in the world. Angie's calling you an idiot so many times. You have way more patience than I do and I applaud you for it. This happened to me last night. A local got mad at me and came in saying to her one night stand date, but it's in my car IDKY, I have to wear it anyway and I'm just coming in to see you, but that wench haha girl boo. Do they not realize that being that selfish may just turn and bite them right in their friggin' butt? Good job, Mr. Bellman of the Year. I am, at this moment, your biggest cheerleader. Why? Keep on keeping on them about the fact that a mask and will most likely save some poor soul's life. Thank you so much. I just hope they learn the easy way. I wish the hotel I stayed in last week gave that power to the employees. So many folks without masks, dick face mask wearing, no masks at all by the pool, etc, etc. Even had a non-mask wearer try to join us in an elevator. I blocked the door and said policy is one group per elevator. Please wait for the next one. I don't think I'm ever going out without a mask. The anonymity it provides is amazing. It's exactly why I wear a scarf in winter with my hoodie. All you see are my glasses. And if I could get contacts you'd see even less. Had a guy on my job site for a while that had it hooked on one ear and would bite it to cover his face or would just hold it. Never actually wore it and it's mandated. People are whack. Please get yourself registered to vote if you're not already, and let's all show up at the polls. Out with the entitled Karens of the world. I love this tale. I am a total Nazi about the mask wearing. Also that holds something up to your face. Tissue. Does not fly. T-shirt pulled up over your mouth held by your hand. No dice. You must have a hands-free mask and over your nose or hit the bricks. You need some keep it covered signs. My job has it and the rule is nose and mouth are to be covered, and if not we inform them that both need to be. My mask is adjustable, so once I tightened it all the way and tried to block all the air coming to my nose without plugging it, it was tough as heck to breathe, but I could still do it. So goddammit, wear a mask. K. I'm a guest, you idiot, I just told you that. OP. If you break hotel policy, that can change. This is such an impressive counter to guest is always right attitude. Honestly, wearing a mask makes me lightheaded after a few hours, which is why I've kept outside activities, grocery, errands, etc. to a minimum. What's the story behind the time you were that customer who freaked out at a retail or food service worker? I was in Montreal for a hockey game and wanted to buy a Canadiens jersey. They're a little pricey at the arena, so I was walking around downtown Montreal looking at all of the sports memorabilia shops. I found one, walked in and bought a Canadiens jersey. It was one of the nice Reebok lace-up ones, for almost half retail price. I put it on to wear out of the shop, as I was walking around Montreal in just a t-shirt and it was quite cold. Ripped the tags off, and as we were leaving, my dad noticed that the NHL insignia was backwards and said LNH. This place was packed because it was hockey day, and I got in the clerk's face and said, rather loudly, "You sell fakes. This is a bootleg. Chinese crap. This is supposed to say NHL." The clerk's English wasn't great French speaking, but he assured me these are the new ones. LNH is the new logo. I replied, yeah, okay. NHL changed their name. I believe that. He wouldn't do a refund, and finally I left the store feeling defeated. On the walk back to the hotel, I saw another Montreal jersey with the LNH insignia, and another. I pulled my phone out and googled it. La Ligue Nationale de Hockey. The new Canadiens jerseys had LNH on them to celebrate their French-Canadian heritage. It was in Munich, Germany about 15 years ago. I was on a train and a conductor comes around to check for tickets. I give him my ticket, and immediately he starts explaining something about how I hadn't paid and he was gonna write me a fine. I was like, what the frick? You literally have the ticket that I bought in your hand. Are you crazy? He keeps explaining I didn't pay and so he needs to give me a fine. I keep getting more and more irate at this obvious idiot. How could he possibly say that? I point to him that the value I paid for the ticket is on the fricking thing, and start insinuating is he doing this to all tourists? To scam them? Freaking butthole. By this time we've reached the next station and he gestures to me while getting off the train with my ticket and sticks it in a machine on the platform that goes catching. And he gives it back to me. Now, you've paid. Oh. Buying a used car from a dealer. We agreed on a price over the phone. He offered to have someone come pick me up to test drive it. I was new in the city and had no car. I said sure, let's do it. I'm prepared to buy the car with cash today, but not for 1 cent more than the price we agreed upon. So don't waste our time bringing me out there unless we're clear here. This is the final price, all fees included. The dealership was a 30-40 minute drive away, so I didn't want to waste my time if it wasn't real. So he and another guy come pick me up, and of course he's trying to sell me a new car instead of the one I'm interested in, but I'm not hearing it. I test drive the car, it's just what I'm looking for, and the price we agreed on is under KBB value, so I'm good with everything. Then he draws up the paperwork and the final cost is nearly $2 grand more than we agreed on. I'm pretty upset now. We had a clear agreement, and he tries to slip in $2,000 like I wouldn't care. I say no deal, drop me back off at home. He keeps knocking off 100 here, 100 there. Frick that, we had a deal, take me back home. Finally he says, well, if you're not gonna buy the car for $1,500 more than what I told you, then you can find your own way home. So now I start raising my voice so the other customers hear our conversation. You mean to tell Emmy you dragged Emmy 40 minutes away from home? Try to charge Emmy an extra 2 grand, then tell Emmy I'm stranded out here if I don't pay. He's begging me to be quiet. Tries cutting more off the price, but I'm not letting this go. People are staring. The dealer is sweating bullets. His manager comes in and starts getting more of it from me. They start apologizing, but I'm not letting them off here. I don't respond well to crappy high pressure sales tactics and they're starting to realize it. Anyway, after making a big scene and giving the auto dealer that tried to pull this on me a legitimate panic attack, the manager finally agreed to sell me the car at the agreed upon price, which I then negotiated another $500 off of. He really wanted me out of that shop. Car is still running great. That is bulls. I don't know if I would have purchased anything from them once they pulled that crap. I spent my last $40 on a car part I needed. It had obviously been returned before and was assembled incorrectly by the first purchaser. First he said I couldn't return it because it had brake fluid on it. Okay, fair enough. He can't resell it, but whatever. I had my friend drive me home and I cleaned it up and had my friend drive me back again the next morning. Now he's saying he can't take it back without a receipt. Well, I paid with a credit card and there's a warranty, so I should be in the system. He wouldn't even check and refused to exchange it. I freaking lost it. I was irate, screaming at him. Customers were laughing at how upset I was. He threatened to call the police. I told him to go ahead, but then something amazing happened. Behind this guy's back, another employee overheard my details, looked up my information and printed out a copy of my receipt. Just as this guy is about to tell me for the millionth time that I can't return the part without a receipt, the employee behind him hands it to me, and I handed it back to the manager I was arguing with. Got my new part and was able to make it to work that night. Hope that guy didn't get fired for doing the right thing. Frick you, Krager Checker O'Reilly store manager. Sat down at a restaurant at the world's most inconvenient table, square with 4 chairs. One was pushed up about a foot from the bar and the bar patrons. They were practically sitting on the table. I sit across from my partner. Shortly a waitress comes and asks me to move adjacent to my partner, as my chair is impeding the ability for others to go to the bar. So I move. Then we wait a long time to be served. Get our food and I take my first mouthful when an employee comes over and says that I need to move seats because my chair is blocking the path they use to deliver food. This happened once more before I finished my food. I lost my crap. I just wanted to eat. I had gone 2 days without my medication because my doctor did not renew my prescription due to him suddenly leaving the practice. I have epilepsy. I was feeling sick, hazy and not aware of my surroundings, but I managed to walk over to the pharmacy to get a refill once I finally got the new doctor to fill out a script. I told the lady that my script was sent to a different pharmacy, but I had to come to this one because I couldn't drive over to the one I was going to, and I wanted to go to this one anyways. She said okay. I confirmed with her literally 4 or 5 times that she would call and transfer over my script. It isn't my first rodeo, and she said she would. An hour later I come to pick up my medicine. She puts it in the bag and staples it. I pay and leave. I get home and it is the wrong medication. I had gone there for a brief period of time and I guess for some reason they had it on file that I was to take the same medication but in a much lower dose. The 1-month bottle she gave me would last about a week. I had to go walk 20 minutes back to the pharmacy again. She claimed I had never mentioned there was another pharmacy and it would be a few hours until she could fill it. I already waited over an hour plus walked for a total of 60 minutes. There, back, there. I told her and she didn't believe me, so I got angry and raised my voice and said that I would really need this medication a lot sooner than a few hours for now. That I asked for it over an hour ago and I was given the wrong medication and this was not acceptable. She threatened to not fill my medication and ban me from the pharmacy. Maybe I was making a bigger scene than I thought I was. I said alright, I am sorry. I have gone 3 days without my medication. I cannot drive to my other pharmacy. I really need to take this medication in the proper dose, not 12 of these little pills for one dosage. I am extremely hazy and I feel sick. Please just fill my script. She had me just sit down and wait and called then and there. At least it got done in about 45 minutes instead of a few hours. I felt like an butt, especially since I never yell at anyone. I think that's reasonable. You needed medication. You were given the wrong medication and then the pharmacist threatened to ban you because you were asking her to fix her mistake. That's just bad customer service on her part. Waiting in Gatwick for our flight, which was at 0650. Gates closed 30 minutes before departure. Watching the boards like a hawk, but the go to gate only appears at 0610. Cutting it a little fine for them, but whatever. We start casually making our way towards the gate. It's a bit of a walk, but as we pass another board on the way at 0615, gate closing appears. So we start running to the gate. Get there a few minutes later, as a passenger walks through the gate. Hand over boarding passes and passports, and the saggy-faced old witch, who was dead behind the eyes and had nothing between the ears, says sorry, the gate is closed. It was 0617. Not a chance they should have closed the gate, but clearly they'd thought the last passenger had boarded and decided to shut up early to make their stats look good. I kicked off. I had seen that they just let a passenger through. I could see them still boarding the plane. But no, they'd shut their systems down and couldn't do anything. This was utter bollocks. I called them out on it, but eventually got marched back through the airport to get another flight. As we're checking in for a flight that leaves at 0900, we're told we have to pay another £100 each. This was twice as much as we'd paid for the original flight. I explained the situation, but the woman at check-in wasn't having it either and just assumed we turned up late and missed the flight. I was adamant on my timings, so repeated myself, getting more and more irate until eventually the manager of not just the airline, but the whole of Gatwick, came out. I repeated my timings and told them that I thought the airline was trying to bump up their stats by shutting the gate early. He went away and checked, came back, and my timings were spot on. He agreed with me. Alas, we were on the next flight, upgraded, for free. If you are from the UK, it wouldn't surprise you to know that it was an EasyJet flight. Assholes. Used to work at Gatwick. That place can attract the best and worst in everybody, probably the case with all airports. EasyJet are the worst, but the people they attract to their flights are horrible. Not saying you are. I used to work at the only fast food place there, and I can guarantee you that the ones that were a pain in the ass were the EasyJet passengers. Right after I got my first salary, I went to a big electronics store and bought a steering wheel controller. They had only one left of the one I wanted, the exhibit one. Salesman promised it may be okay if I just cleaned it properly. He even gave me 10% off, yet price still was €198. At home I noticed it was broken. When I drove back to the store, scumbag salesman told me would arrange the repair and it would be fixed in about 4 weeks. That was when I went from slightly to purified anger. I told him I wanted to back off from the purchase. Then he told me that the company terms blah blah blah. I didn't remember exactly what he said because I yelled all over the place. May I please talk to someone who is not about to frick me from behind on the counter? This must have been the magic words, since the manager and a bunch of customers came over to see what was going on, and I did get my money back. I still remember what my teacher always said: sometimes you just have to talk to people. Or maybe yell all over the place. I had ordered some food at around 2 AM. My roommate had to work the next day and was sleeping, so I made a note on the delivery saying, "Please call, do not ring bell." Thanks, our doorbell was a really loud buzzer, so I didn't want to wake him. About an hour later, I hear a loud bzzzzzzzzzzzzzzz. I was so annoyed because I had clearly asked that they not do that. I go to the door and it's this guy, probably around 20 years, and immediately after he hands me my food, he sticks his hand out and goes, "Tip." I had money in my pocket that I was going to tip him with, but I didn't even get a chance to get it out before he did that. I responded with, "Seriously?" Then I went to tell him that he was not going to get a tip, not only because he rang the bell when I clearly asked him not to, it was printed on the receipt under my address so he should have seen it, but also because of how rudely he demanded a tip. I told him about how I was a delivery driver when I was in college and I would never try to force someone to tip me. He said, "Whatever," and left. So I called the restaurant and told them they had a really crappy driver. This happened at my bank. Went in to change my rent money from 20s to 100s so making a money order would be easier to count. I tell the lady behind the desk what I'm doing, and she happily agrees to help me. In 20s, I count out about $1,000 to her, putting the money down and counting out loud. She then takes the cash, gets the hundreds, and counts back $900 to me. I tell her there's $100 missing, and she claims I only counted $900 to her. She already put the 20s I gave her in her drawer, so there was no way to see what I counted to her. I argued with her for about 10 minutes until she told me they were about to close and to come back tomorrow to speak to a manager. I was so shocked this lady was so stupid that I just told her to quit her job while she's ahead and walked out. Thankfully I had an extra $100 in birthday money, but frick that lady, never went back to that exact location. They can also count their drawers to see if anything is off, which wouldn't be a big deal as they were about to close. I used to be a teller and being $100 isn't a small deal. Lady at the drive-thru couldn't hear me, so I talked louder. Still couldn't hear me so I spoke even louder. Still couldn't hear me so I moved round to the window and she had the headset around her neck. So I said, quite loudly, "Can you hear me now?" She jumped about 3 feet and looked surprised to see me. I'm imagining you as the Sprint dude. So my husband is a drummer and he had just played a gig. Had a full load of drums in his station wagon and couldn't see well out the back. Important later. He pulls into Macca's for a late night snack. Orders McNuggets. He's told there's a wait and to park in the waiting bay. He had to reverse. He reversed once and hit a bollard. Drove forward and reversed and again hit the bollard. He was super embarrassed, so he just drove straight out into the car park and for some reason, reversed into a park, completely taking out a rubbish bin. By this time the whole store is looking outside because it looks like he's tearing the place up for being made to wait for nuggets. Next thing the poor drive-thru kid came running outside with bag of food, apologizing and terrified. Threw the bag in the window and ran back inside. I still giggle when I think about this. I'm sitting at my desk at my very professional place of employment crying because I'm trying not to laugh. My co-worker asked if I'm okay. I'm not. That's freaking hilarious. My dad can be that customer. A lot. The story that sticks out is when we went to Disney World. It was around 9 p.m. Me and my sister should be getting to bed by then. Not to mention we were tired from traveling. My dad goes to check us in and we sit in some chairs, waiting, and then we hear my dad getting mad. He wasn't yelling, but we could hear him across the room, giving the checkout lady heck for not having our reservations. Turns out my dad had been scammed by a website that took our money for the hotel and was not affiliated with them. This was in the earlier days of the internet, so scams were easier to fall for. So my dad, swearing away, pays for our hotel again. No, there's no justice here. The hotel didn't deserve the crap they got, and my dad got scammed. Damned if he didn't pay again anyway to make sure his daughters still got to have fun at Disney. I love him, even if he has a temper. Anyone who's got a bus in the UK or most other places really will know that when you ring the bell, not only does it make an audible ding, but a light at the front of the bus next to the driver that says bus stopping will illuminate. Rang the bell, got up and stood right next to the driver by the door so he can clearly also see I'm waiting to get off. Driver just continues past the bus stop. I'm like, "You not stopping for me there." He rolls his eyes, scowls and slams on the brakes in the middle of the road, to the point where everyone standing up nearly fell over and I think I heard someone fall down the stairs. Looks at me and goes, "Maybe try ringing the bell next time if you want me to stop then," and opens the door in the middle of the road. I just walked up to the sign that's lit up right in front of him and start sarcastically tapping it like it's on the fritz. "Well, I think your light must be freaking broken or you're going blind if you can see that, mate." Heard him mumbling something as I got off. So many bus drivers are such miserable pricks. There was also the time a bus was 30 minutes late and I didn't thank the driver when I got off, but I'll save that gripping tale for another time. There was also the time a bus was 30 minutes late and I didn't thank the driver when I got off, but I'll save that gripping tale for another time. This belongs in our British problems for sure. Moved cities and had to transfer my internet account. Had to pay a ridiculous transfer and reconnection fee, but whatever, I needed internet so I paid it. Next month my bill arrives with the same fees on it. I call and then eventually I'm told the fees will be waived and my next bill will be fine. Next one arrives and I still owe a $150 transfer fee and the plan is now $20 more expensive. I call again and am told the plan I signed up for no longer exists and so I have to be on this more expensive one. I am again told the transfer fee will not be on the next bill. After some arguing they agree to give me a temporary credit to make my bill the price I originally agreed to. The next bill arrives. This one is again the same increased rate and has phone charges on it. I had never even bought a phone to plug into the wall, only a modem. I ring again and file a complaint. When they eventually got back to me regarding my complaint I lost it. After months of absurd bills, charges and compliant customer service people who always assured me next month it would be fixed, I'd had enough. Entertainingly enough, yelling at them was what finally got them to sort the crap out. I got a permanent $20 credit to bring my plan back to what I agreed to pay and no more phantom charges occurred. I still switched plans as soon as my contract ended though. I was getting my phone number transferred from my father's name to mine. It took about a year of me begging him to do it until he caved and did it. As a small backstory, he is a very abusive, narcissistic bastard and I was trying to get away from him at the time. After we finished the paperwork, we received a confirmation email stating it would take between 2 to 5 business days. A week passed. Nothing. Another week passed. Still nothing. I contacted their customer support and they assured me that they were working on it. A third week passed by and I called them. After explaining my situation, the girl put me on hold without warning and left for about 10 minutes. I had enough time to cook lunch. When she came back, she told me I never ordered the transfer. I told her that I had, indeed, ordered it and that I had both my father's and my own confirmation emails and read the important parts out loud for her. She said it wasn't possible and repeated that we never ordered it. I asked her to shut up with the whole "we never ordered it" thing and sent her screenshots per mail. She put me on hold again without warning and I waited again. Finally, she came back again and told me, well, the documents aren't here. I asked her why come they aren't there. She made a sound and simply said I don't know. I was getting kind of upset at this point so I asked her to please find out, prompting her to put me on hold without warning again. When she came back, she explained they could have been lost but it was most likely our fault they had lost them. This upset me something fierce because we had done everything they asked and from then on, it was their responsibility to complete the transfer. I mentioned this and she agreed. So I asked her if she could, based on the confirmation emails, transfer the number. She told me no and implied that stealing another person's number was illegal and that I had to talk to my father to resubmit the request. I was so mad at this point I might have been crying. I felt pretty lost at that point. Pretty much thanked her for nothing and hung up. I feel bad about it in hindsight, but things like these aren't supposed to happen and her accusing me like that was way over the line. I hated this. I used to be a self-service rep on phones and the amount this happened was stupid. Even if it was past the 15-day open window of authorization I still put it through as it was the second attempt at this and it really wasn't their fault but ours. I hated having to clean up co-workers' crap but the customers were happy at the end. I went into a little vegan place in Soho, London, for a coffee. My then girlfriend and I were on our way to a movie and had around 45 minutes to spare. I ordered 2 cappuccinos. There was no one else waiting, and there were 2 hipster looking types behind the counter. They took my order and then spent, and I crap you not, 27 minutes walking back and forth, talking, moving things around, washing stuff, but not making coffee. In the interim a small line had formed, and they served a couple of those people first, including with food orders. I asked after 15 minutes, just to check they hadn't forgotten me. They said of course not, and continued to frick about. In the end I stood up and started yelling at them, asking what the frick they were doing, and why it was so hard to make 2 simple fricking coffees. I demanded my money back, as we didn't have time for the coffee anyway, and had to then have a big argument about this while one of them kept saying but we're making it, useless fricking buttholes. When I turned round after berating them, the actor Forrest Whitaker was behind me in the line, and I felt bad for losing it in front of Ghost Dog. Could have been your big break. Charlize Theron got her break into showbiz when she was tapped by a talent agent after he witnessed her screaming at a bank teller in LA, who refused to cash her check. I'm not proud of this one, but I was on a 9-day stretch of going in at 7 AM to work and stopped at Starbucks for a coffee and a bagel, since that would be my food intake till like 1, when coverage got to my department. So I go in, order and wait. Get coffee, wait more. Gonna be late if I keep waiting. So I mention it to the person I made the order with and they got crappy with me saying I didn't order a bagel. I showed her the receipt she gave me and she just made a harumph sound and started making it. 3 more people got their orders before I got my bagel. I mention it again and the lady practically throws it at me. So in a fit of spite I've never felt since I turned to leave and go, oh and by the way, someone spilled something and tossed my venti cold press on the ground. The whole place goes silent and the lady, who was the manager, apparently just looks at me with pure hate in her eyes. I didn't break my stride leaving. Karen secretly films me jogging and shows video to my boss. I recently had an emergency appendectomy, and recovery has been slow. I had to take time off from my own athletics, but worse, from coaching in the kids sports program I'm involved with. The experience made me step back and realize I really built my whole identity around being active and healthy, so the hit my physical abilities took as a result of being sick and the healing process has made me feel lost. I've been working to regain the joy I used to experience from exercise, without going, oh, you used to be so much faster with that, or your technique used to be so much stronger, or you don't fit in anymore, or whatever else, and just enjoy myself regardless of the level I'm at. But ironically, the anxiety about not being able to do what I used to has made regaining those abilities difficult. It made me self-conscious about exercising in public spaces, but I was starting to finally get over it as friends convinced me the source of the concerns were all in my head. There's no way to get back to it other than training. So despite the anxiety, I started running again. As soon as the doctors approved it, I went to the local track and just did a few slow laps each morning, building up speed every few days, and I've only just been authorized to add some sprints and body weight strength training to the mix. Occasionally there were other people at the track, but I didn't really notice because I run with headphones on and try to zone out in these lighter sessions. But little did I know my friends were wrong. It was not all in my head. I was being watched. And more than that, I was being judged. My absolute catastrophe level worst nightmare at this stage of building back my strength and speed. On Friday I was setting up for practice at the kids program and the head coach asked me into his office because a parent had a complaint. A parent I didn't know too well. Karen was there and he said she had specific complaints about me. The meeting almost didn't happen because of Karen's initial refusal to put on a mask, required in our facilities for now, but eventually her desire to tell on me for whatever she thought she had me on overrode her freedoms to infect everyone. I was a bit nervous, as anyone is being called to meet with their boss over a complaint. But I figured it was a classic case of my kid should start more, or I know my kid tried out as a midfielder but I want her to switch to defense. That kind of rules don't apply to me thing. But instead, I sit down in the office, and Karen is playing my boss a video of me running on the track that she filmed from afar. It's surrounded by stadium-style risers. I was horrified, both because no one is ever totally used to seeing themselves on video, and because I was just embarrassed about how slow I was. But most importantly because Y was a virtual stranger. I'd met her personally maybe 4 times, ever, filming me while I ran on my own time at a private facility. She then went on to explain that her 8-year-old son, one of the players on my squad, was lapping me in the video and insisting the coaches need to hold themselves to higher athletic standards than the young players if they want to prepare them for college teams. Again, her son is 8. Apparently her son would sometimes be running on the track while her older child was practicing on a nearby field. I never noticed. The kid is still relatively new, and I don't pay much attention to the other people on the track. My boss patiently but firmly explained to Karen that my physical abilities are not the parents' concern and all personnel are closely managed by the head coaches who understand each unique situation and what's appropriate, and that her son wouldn't be impacted. Karen then went on to say my being out of shape was probably connected to why I'd been taking so much time off lately. Technically yes, It is because I was in the hospital and complaining that the personnel changeover isn't good for the kids. My boss again reiterated that the head coaches hadn't changed or taken any time off and that I was still one of the most skilled in the area I instruct. So this was not her concern. She asked if there was someone else she could speak to, but he explained that he was the owner and founder of this program. So, no, there was not. I knew my boss was intentionally avoiding saying what had happened to me or even alluding to a health issue to protect my privacy, but I figured maybe being transparent with her would show her how ridiculous she was being and keep her tuition dollars an hour program during a difficult time for sports clubs. But when I explained, she just turned to the boss and said, well, maybe you should follow her until she's healed and bring on a healthy coach in the meantime, because my son needs someone out there who can keep up with him. My boss respected what I was trying to do but made clear we weren't going further with that strategy to avoid setting a precedent of sharing coaches' personal circumstances, telling her why people take time off or what their health status maybe is not her concern because the program manages that and makes appropriate decisions. She kept kicking up a fuss, but the coach finally told her he had to get back out on the field, back to her son and everyone else's kids. She started physically leaving, but continued fussing about how she was not satisfied and would not be recommending us to other parents. Pro tip: not the way to conduct yourself with the people who make recommendations to scouts concerning family culture team interaction. The coach wasn't preparing to leave. Instead, he stopped her in her tracks to tell her if she was found to be surveilling or otherwise harassing any staff members again, she would be permanent from the program. No games or practices, no team social events, no presence in our buildings, and no clemency. So, that was pretty satisfying. Her son is a good, average kid, and I'm glad the consequences were focused on booting her out rather than limiting his opportunities to have fun playing. So then we went out and had a great, happy, safe practice. This was still a pretty upsetting event for me personally though, and I'll never unsee that discouraging video of me running. But it was ultimately reassuring to know the other staff have my back. Leaving Karen in the dust is just another step on my road to recovery. Wow, what a psycho. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Your boss handled that really well. As a business owner myself, sometimes you have to fire customers, clients, and this is absolutely one of those situations. When I first opened my small biz retail store, I got told off by an angry mom who got upset when I told her that I couldn't have her kids in my after school art class if the kids were going to get pulled out early every week. They would get upset and cry and beg to stay and finish their projects. I remember someone saying to me something along the lines of, if she acts like that to a stranger, imagine how she treats other people who know her. When customers threaten telling other people I suck, I remember that I don't, and hope that good people won't take this obnoxious person seriously. Anyway, keep up the good healing work. You can actually use your story to inspire the kids though. You have just been through surgery and you are up and running again, never giving up. I am seriously clapping for you because I hurt my big toe once and refused to get up for a full week. Though a funny thought came to my mind. Go on like Etsy or whatever crafting website you can find and have a huge pin made to put on your clothing that says something like, I got traumatic surgery X month ago and ran X meters or km or miles today. What's your excuse? But again, I'm a bit of a in your face type person and I understand that this would also not be professional. Not saying to do it either, just a picture I had in mind. Christ, I had a similar operation and I couldn't do much exercise until about 6 months in and gained a bunch of weight. I know how bad it feels to lose all your fitness self-confidence. So all credits to you for getting back into exercising outside so quickly and so well. You keep going and ignore those petulant excuses for adults. My boyfriend trained for a half marathon and ran it. A week later he had to have an emergency appendectomy as well. So much of his progress disappeared. It can be so disheartening waiting for that recovery process. That psycho had no right to talk to you like that. Get better. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Also, your boss is a great person. It's nice to be working for people who have your back. The blindfolded, bulldozer mentality of entitled people in general. This mom specifically ceased being humorous for me a long time ago. But now, I just want to help their victim. No need to go back through her disordered thinking. actions, and overall straight up case of uglies. Let's jump to no one jogging with much thought looks like beauty. We're sweaty, off our form, and would rather hail a flying carpet. I'm still working on counting steps. You're out there, chasing your form, energy, and pushing through reasons. You'll get there. She'll still be in, but that's okay. Get it? Girl, you've got the secret. What an utter moron. If you are coaching soccer, assume this from talk of midfielder and defense. Tell her speed doesn't necessarily make a good player. Look at Letitia. The guy rarely broke a sweat, and at full speed would probably struggle to hit 7 miles per hour but was incredibly talented. It's also a monumental invasion of your privacy. Best wishes for a quick recovery, and I hope you don't have to deal with that woman again. Whoa, your patience is amazing. I would get pretty vocally mad NGL. BTW, glad you're doing better. Side note, your formatting was excellent. Absolutely, you didn't need to explain yourself. A quick look at coaches in all professional leagues and you can see that they don't need to be paragons of athletic fitness. Has anyone ever watched baseball or American football? She's clearly a nut and will always find something to create an issue with. Major red flag. If I were the owner, I would have cancelled her membership, and depending on the contract, consider whether she's be entitled to a refund. I can't think of a sport where the coach is expected to be fitter than the students. Maybe it's different in the US, but outside of it, take say, football. Many coaches are retired players. Many are 50 plus. I doubt any are fitter than their players. There's much more to being a coach than just being as good as and as fit as the people you're coaching. I knew my boss was intentionally avoiding saying what had happened to me or even alluding to a health issue to protect my privacy, but I figured maybe being transparent with her would show her how ridiculous she was being and keep her tuition dollars an hour program during a difficult time for sports clubs. But when I explained, she just turned to the boss and said, well, maybe you should follow her until she's healed and bring on a healthy coach in the meantime, because my son needs someone out there who can keep up with him. Please don't feel the need to justify yourself by telling someone your history when they have already made abundantly clear what kind of person they are. Your boss was looking out for you and it's great to see that. Also, it sets a bad example of other staff needing to justify their own actions and or absences. My brain went to a mean place. I know it's about the kid's speed as a runner and not hers, but I was like, even with surgery I bet OP could lap your butt. B. You are kinder than I am. Since when do coaches have to be better than the people they coach? Bruce Arians just won the Super Bowl, yet he's not better than any of his players, and probably never was better than most of them. Hans-Dieter Flick coaches the current European champion, Bayern Munich, but if he was better than any of his players he'd be playing, not coaching. I'd have told that woman in no uncertain terms to start running, and she'd better hope you don't catch her. I thought this was gonna be a "you're lying and skiving say you're fired" type of thing. So glad it wasn't, and that you have a good employer. Kudos to you for getting back out there. I had a hysterectomy in September last year and still haven't gotten back into exercise, so that fact that you're doing it all is huge. You should be proud of yourself. XX. Your physical condition before surgery is the reason you can run again now. Most people wouldn't be able to do that. It sounds like you have a great, supportive boss who understands your worth and your skill, and I doubt Karen could keep up with you even post-surgery. Focus on you and your recovery. She's not worth your time. Don't you worry about your physical shape. Slow and steady will get you there. As an office worker who feels like dying during any form of training, both physically and out of shame, I don't even have the excuse of an injury, just paying for bad life habits. And if I can move forward, so can you. And knowing how much better you were is proof of what you can. You weren't born in that shape. You developed yourself into it. You earned it. And you will earn it again. As to Karen, she sounds like the type that need to affirm themselves, through the kids as well, in front of others. The kind of parasitic people who take any opportunity to criticize others so they feel better about themselves. Don't ever concern yourself with their little thoughts, in their little world. So sorry this happened to your poor brother. As horrible as the Karen is, this to me was a really lovely story about your manager, setting her right while still keeping your privacy in their mind. Well done, good boss. It makes you a better athlete and coach to know to take it slow when you're trying to recover. Take care of yourself and quite frankly don't listen to the idiots. I bet you get her butt out there and you'd crush her, and parents are going to influence kids' performance more than any coach. Wow, what a crazy person. I can't help but feel like there's a part of this that has to do with you being female. I don't understand how a coach's physical abilities correlate with being good at their job. I've seen plenty of old out of shape dudes lead professional teams to victory. I would have filed a restraining order against that Karen. Surveilling someone with intent of harassment is a serious misdemeanor, and people that do it once will likely try it again. Even with the threat that the coach gave, she could try and post videos on a local moms group, and those are a dumpster fire to start with. All of my coaches growing up were fat and needed a run on the track. I didn't even meet a fit coach until I started working out in a private gym as an adult. My pay teacher in high school would sit on a lawn chair in the middle of the field and yell at us through a bullhorn. The fact you were even upright and moving after surgery is better than most. That is incredibly upsetting. How would she feel if a stranger secretly filmed her, especially in a moment of weakness? How unsettled, unsafe, humiliated, and violated would she feel? Take comfort in knowing that anyone she's told about this knows she is a total creep. Sorry you have to deal with that butthole. I'm so sorry for what happened to you, but what I'm worried about is the kid, because he has to go through it every day. I wouldn't be surprised if she told her kid that he's out of shape for taking 10 seconds while running a mile. Please don't let this affect you in a bad way. You're doing the best that you can and that is all that matters. She is a huge douchebag for recording you without consent, and honestly you just had surgery. You're doing better than I ever could, and I haven't even had surgery, so congrats on that. You're amazing. Keep the video that you don't like and use it. Video yourself from the same point as you progress back to fitness and watch the improvement. Take her spite and make it work for you. Here's something for you. I never knew how well my swim coaches swam, yet I respected them and listened to them. They were encouraging and friendly and maybe a bit tough in some practices. LOL. You know how it is. But yet, I never knew how well they swam or not. There is some technical expertise in knowing how, but I know, being smaller and shorter, that there can be physical limits and that I push them. But encouragement will trump actual performance anytime with coaches for me. I do not care. That Karen can bite me. How invasive that she was filming you. Heck, sometimes I was float on my back listening to music when I hit the pool. I don't go 100% all the time. WTF Karen, I bet you are an awesome coach to the kids. You kept your cool around her. Awesome. I'm not sure I would have done as well as you there. I hate being judged for something that wasn't wrong. Coaches are psychological supports, general supports, have knowledge and create strong bonds for teams to help them function and for individual players to reach beyond they thought was possible. Which has nothing to do with the coach's raw performance on the field anyways. Karen seems the opposite here. She doesn't understand what coaches actually do. Row. Just row. What the frick was that bee thinking? Did she forget that meat suits are fragile? Or that people can still teach stuff while they're letting their body recover from damage? She's gonna get one rude awakening the first time she runs into something debilitating. Karma will come for her. It's a shame y'all didn't throw in the illegally videoing of yourself without consent. Depending on where you live, that is. Where I am, it's 2-party consent, and I have actually threatened entitled idiots with this. They almost crap a brick when it happened, as we literally were across the road from the police station. In most states it's not illegal if it's in a public place. Disclaimer, I'm not a lawyer, so check your local laws. As someone who has always been able to be outrun by an average 8-year-old, frick her. Everyone's physical abilities are their own business, and there's no shame in whatever pace you keep for whatever reason you keep it, and regardless of if you're working to be faster or just having fun. It's such a shame a child has to grow up with a parent as rude as that. You're clearly a great coach and the owner clearly has your back, so the best you can do is your best for the kids. Parents suck sometimes, but don't let them get you down, and don't be afraid to tell your boss if you have any more incidents with that jackass or any like her. About half a third way through, I had that nagging impulse in my head, why not just tell her you aren't at your best yet? You're recovering. She'll understand. And then she proved me wrong. Ugh. As a former high-level sports coach, gymnastics, the idea that how good a coach is depends on whether we can still do the sport to a high standard is infuriating. Coaching is so much more complicated than monkey see monkey do. Can I still double twist with great form? Absolutely not. I'm not training 20 hours a week to do so. Can I spot the slight angle adjustment needed to your kid's takeoff angle to correct the problem they're having completing the twist? Yes, and I'll work with them until it's correct. If I was your boss, I would have cut her off way sooner. Not only did she film you without your permission, but she tried to use it against you. I'd have kicked her out the second she said she was filming my employee for any reason outside of being a background character at her kid's sports game. I'm sorry that happened to you, OP. I remember when I had an appendectomy and it sucked all of my core strength just faded since they cut into your core muscles. I hope you have a good recovery and wish you the best. But just remember that everyone is their worst critic and to focus on the progress you're making. You'll get back to where you used to be, it will just take time. The guys worked hard and finished their work an hour early one day, so I sent them home. The payroll lady drove past one of their homes and saw their car in the driveway, so she reported it to my manager. Unbelievable. I'm reminded of a similar situation a few years back, also teaching kids. I would play against them so I could figure out their weaknesses, often doing just one or two things to confirm my suspicions. Kids usually liked it because they would often win and it gave them a good boost. Well, one dad thought it couldn't be that hard and wanted a go himself. Now almost no one they had seen me at competition level speed. The dad was cocky, so I went on full competition level against him. Room went silent after the first point and people were shocked. Started asking me what was this, how did you do that, and so on. The dad never complained afterwards and was actually a really nice guy. He just came from the school of those who can't do teach. Yeah, well, he was half right. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.